system. So when we think about a computer, it has some main parts that it can't do without. So if you have a computer, there's some specific parts of your computer that without them your computer cannot function properly. Now, when we think of a typical computer, we have four main components of that computer, or four main parts that the computer needs. The first is the central processing unit. When you heard me, I said the central processing unit is like the brain of your computer. So the CPU, it's like the brain of the computer. Imagine yourself as a human being. What if your brain is not functioning? How do you think? Same thing for a computer. The next thing is what? Internal hard disk drive. Now, as a human being, you have memory. You need somewhere to store information, and it's the same for a computer. A computer also needs somewhere to store its information. So whatever is processed, whatever you're doing on a computer has to be stored somewhere, with either permanently or temporarily. So that's where the hard disk or a solid state drive comes in. Thirdly, we have what we call the temporal memories, like the RAM and the ROM. Like I talked about, RAM is random access memory, and ROM is what? Read-only memory. So these two memory are the last two main parts of, or two main components of a computer. So in simple terms, when they talk about main components of a computer, these are just hardware necessary for a computer to function properly. Four of them: CPU or central processing unit, hard disk drive or solid state drive, and then you have your ROM and your RAM. Good. Next, we're looking at these main components of a computer, trying to describe them in detail, because in a question you don't want to forget it. They say what, they will just ask you what describe the central processing unit. Simply, what are they asking you to do? Use simple ways depending on the number of marks they give you to what? Describe this thing to me. Or they can say describe a lion. So you can say a lion has four legs, a lion has claws, and all of that. That is what they mean by description. So for the central processing unit, they will say it's what? They can say describe the CPU. Saying that the CPU is what? The brain of the computer. That's correct. Or you say that it's the main processing unit of the computer, it's still correct. And then you can also go further to say the CPU is what? It has an arithmetic and logic unit. When we say it's the brain of the computer, it means the complex aspect of the computer, it's taken care of by it. So that's what the ALU does. What? Calculations. You can use that to do calculation and logical decisions. And then you can also say it controls what? Unit for control, to controlling input and output devices. And also you can also say it has small memory location registers for what? Data storage when being processed. So these are some key parts or key aspects of the CPU that makes it central to a computer. Next, we'll look at the random access memory. Very important. RAM. Like I said, it controls speed. It helps how fast your computer will be processing information. So it's a primary internal memory for temporal data storage. And importantly too, we have to know it's volatile, meaning whatever is stored in it, the content is lost when your computer turns off. And then you can write to your RAM, but you cannot what? Read from it. And then for RAM, the RAM size can be increased to improve computer speed, like I said. So if your RAM is 2 gig, 4 gig, 12 gig, 16 gig, you can upgrade it depending on the type of computer you have, provided you have a laptop or you have like a desktop. For phones, some of those things are a little bit more difficult. You just need to buy a new phone, because some of those things are embedded directly on the motherboard of your electronics. Next, we have the read-only memory. As the name says, it's also a primary internal memory storage for permanent data storage. This mostly stores boot instructions. So when you press the power button of your computer, it goes to what? Your ROM, to read instructions on how to boot from the hard drive. That's why the hard drive is a central part of your computer. The ROM is a central part of your computer, and how fast this boot also depends on your RAM. So primary internal memory storage for permanent data storage, and it is non-volatile, meaning whatever is stored on it is what kept permanently, and it can only be read from, you cannot write to the ROM. And then it is used to store BIOS, like basic input output system. So this is also a central part of the ROM. Now we're talking about the internal hard disk drive or solid state drive. The last part, you need somewhere to store your information, so you can simply say it's what permanent storage for large amount of data. And then also it stores application. We talked about application software. It stores your operating system, so application or system software are typically stored in your hard disk, and they can be fixed or removable, so you can keep it permanent inside your computer, or you can even bring it out. That's why you see people moving around at times with what external hard disk drive. So I will end here for this session, and I'll see you in the next video. Like and subscribe. See you.